Osceola, although they created recently, they have a hotel, I believe, for transitional um, issues, whether you have a hurricane or something like that, where you can bring some bed, but there's no permanent fixing. They have no beds. Seminole County have about 160 beds. Orange County, I'm glad that they're finally coming to the table and working on that, because Orange County don't have any beds either. So it's only the city of Orlando in the region that has beds for the homeless. So what happens? A lot of these homeless is come to the city of Orlando, and we have to house them. And don't get me wrong, we're willing to do that and do more, because we have those programs that satisfy the needs, and we're trying to rehabilitate a lot of these people. But when is enough enough, right? We have to make sure that these other cities around us have also capacity to bring some of these homeless and help them too. So what we created is, I went to the Tri-County League of Cities. I'm part of the Tri-County League of Cities. And I met with my fellow commissioners and mayors, and I asked them to form a committee, because we have a beautiful commission in the Central Florida region, this Commission on Homelessness, that are doing a wonderful job. But we have to help. So I asked for these commissioners to join us. Now we started a movement. We had this first meeting where we met and we talked about this. And the commission presented a great report about what's going on in the state of homelessness in the Central Florida region. So the next step for all of us, and I need for all of you guys to engage, is to call our legislators and tell Tallahassee that we need to pass law, an umbrella law, that forces every municipality to have capacity for homelessness, because not everybody should be able, there's other cities that don't have, should be sending theirs to us. Because although we are more, yes, we're willing to help. We're willing to help. We're not going to stop it. We're willing to help. And this particular, I'm glad that we're having this meeting, because this came about a particular issue with the Kaylee location. But I'm glad that you guys came forward and you said, okay, this is what we want, and this is not what we want. That's how government is supposed to be run, with the consent of the people. So I'm very proud of each one of you. We're going to solve this together, but we need to also get Tallahassee involved. We need to also tell them to pass legislation that is going to force all cities to also create accommodations for the homeless. And for that, I'm glad that you guys are here tonight, because I know you're going to call your legislators. You're going to tell them, let's come up with a comprehensive program to work on this. And we're going to continue talking about this. So God bless you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, let's now open up to questions. So if I can let's start with Doug. Doug was super fast. We have a mic for Doug.
Doug McKee, I'm in Wakeview Park. What part of a feasibility study describes the criteria where a shelter would be placed? We didn't know that. It was never made clear to us. But how is that decided? How is the location of a facility decided? What is the criteria exactly?
The short answer, there really isn't any best practice for it. So shelters in the United States really started taking on real meaning during the Great Depression in the 1930s. About that time, the population of the United States was about 150 million people, but roughly 2 million people at any given night in the 1930s after the crash in 29 were experiencing homelessness. A much higher percentage than any other time in history. The next highest percentage of time is right now, today. Commissioner Ortiz is right, there's 770,000 people in the United States experiencing homelessness, roughly 0.2% of the population. There are differences in every city in the United States, right? So I mentioned earlier, Boston has a higher rate of homelessness than Miami and so on, and I mentioned housing. The issue that we struggle with is that the cost of housing is the leading driver for homelessness. And to give you an example, the state of Mississippi has the highest rate of poverty of all 50 states. It has the lowest rate of homelessness. And so some of this doesn't make immediate logical sense. You have to take it one step further. And the reason that is because in the state of Mississippi, the relative cost to rent an apartment or to own a home is much lower because of all the series of problems they've had in the community for many decades. So in Philadelphia and in Chicago, they have decreasing rates of homelessness, largely because their populations are going down, and thus the supply and demand issue around housing has changed. So what people are trying to do is figure out the best practice of exactly where to place a shelter. But at the same time, shelter is not the answer, but it's an important part of the solution. And I'll use healthcare as an example. If we took all the money that's spent on healthcare in the United States every year and instead spent it on research, in theory, we could cure all disease. But are we willing to do that and watch people die for the year, decade, or century that it takes to cure all disease? No. So it's not an either or proposition, it's a both and. You have to have research and you have to have emergency rooms. In the same way, homelessness works the same. You have to have shelter to address the emergency need, but at the same time, if you're not addressing your affordable housing crisis, then you're going to be pushing back on the ocean on this problem forever and ever and ever. That's actually good news though, because just a few years ago, this was not generally accepted in the US. That is the best practice we all agree on. But the idea of where to place a shelter isn't something that there's a lot of common agreement. There are places out there, there have been books that have been written that will recommend different things, but usually what you would do is you would identify concentrations of homelessness in your community, and then you would look for acceptable property near that area that would be accommodating to the size of that homeless population. So for example, we might want to build a 100-bed shelter in the city of Orlando, but in the city of Apopka, they might not need more than a 15-bed shelter. So there's a lot of different variables that go into it, but as far as I know, and actually the expert, there's really should be up here, is Lisa Portelli. She's actually been doing a lot of this work. There may be acceptable best practice that I'm not aware of, but she'd be the one asked. As far as I know, there isn't one kind of generally accepted best practice.
Is it safety a priority in SoDo for any unique community and nation yet to see it?
No, and let me tell you why.
Safety.
I know safety's always the top priority, but here's the issue. Shelter in the United States today does not work the same as it did during the Great Depression. We have pictures on our heads of people that were lined up outside, and if you had 80 beds, the first 80 people in line at 5 o'clock get a bed. And that's the way shelter worked in the United States for many decades. In some places, it still works though. Contemporary emergency shelter is a situation where once you are admitted and you've gone through the intake and assessment process and they identify they have a bed for you or for your family, you have that bed as long as you need it until they get you housed. So the reason that's important is that you have a facility here that's kind of, again, like a hospital. Some people might go in for just an hour or two to get some type of food or assistance, but with shelters, it doesn't usually work that way. They're there for days, weeks, or months. So you don't have a population of people going back and forth. The other problem that people don't realize is that most of the people that are living in shelter are employed at the same rate that we're all employed, right? So most people that are working, they're in shelter, 60% are working full-time, about 20% are working part-time. The remainder are usually split between children under the age of 12, adults under the age of 75, and people with major disabilities that can't work. So the safety is always a concern for anything we do in life, and it's always going to be a concern for shelter. But the primary issue here is trying to address the problem in the community where you're at, right? So if there's no homelessness problem, let's say in Lake Nona, then it's not the likely place that we would try to put up a shelter. It's the same reason you would buy, if there was a kind of a rush of house fires in SoDo, you might say, well, we need a fire station here. So in this case, if you have a problem with homelessness, but in communities like Orlando, nobody wants a shelter anywhere near them because we have a lot of sort of misconception about how it works, which is totally understandable. And so it's really tough to find any real estate anywhere where that would be acceptable. And so you look and you do the best you can. and you try to look at all the variables you can, and you move forward. So,
All right, let's move on. A lot of questions.
We have one right here.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Linda Whiting, and I've been in the community for over 35 years.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name's Linda Whiting, and I've been in the community for over 35 years. You brought up a couple of things that were interesting to me, and I believe it is true that we all think of homelessness as a certain group of people. For instance, my husband and I, prior to going to the meeting the last time, we were eating dinner, and a gentleman walked in, went to the trash can, pulled out a cup, walked over to get a drink out of a used cup. Obviously, there may have been some mental illness there. So that's one type of homelessness. Then you talk about people that are out of their homes that are now living in their cars, but they're not coming to the shelters. Why do you think they're not coming to the shelters? It's the fear of what they may find at a shelter. Third, wouldn't it be best to have services all in one place? If these people are homeless and a lot of them don't have transportation in cars, wouldn't it make sense to have all services pretty much in one location? Such as over on Colonial, I don't know the name of the shopping center, there's two huge empty shopping centers by Herndon Airport, across the street from Lenny's La Cantina. There used to be sweet tomatoes in there and so forth.
I'm sorry, please keep the mic to your face so everybody can hear you.
Wouldn't it be best to have something like that, that there's not really close neighbors, it's huge, the parking lot is huge, they can have a clinic there that they can go to, they can have housing inside there, but also create housing for other individuals that may have children, families, moms, dads, and little kids, because they don't want to come to the shelter because they are afraid of what might happen there. You can have the food, you can have everything else, and maybe some mental health care. Now, I know that's probably privately owned property, but long-term leases. And another thing, our taxpayer money. We want to use our taxpayer money for long-term solutions, not buying buses to house a few hundred people, or not even that, I don't believe. We need to have long-term solutions. Homelessness is not new, it's just getting bigger. And we need better solutions.
Hey, everybody, how are you? First of all, I'm Scott Paxton. You came to a lot of my meetings, past couple weeks. And first and foremost, I want to thank our commission, the board people.
I'm sorry, are we answering her question first or your question?
Go ahead. I thought you had a statement.
Question first.
Go ahead.
And my memory's pretty good, but I couldn't remember everything you said. Is there one, of all the things there's one particular question you want to make sure we try to address?
Yes. Why do homeless people that are sleeping in their car not use the shelters?
So, yeah. So, yeah, and so a lot, and I would love to sit down with you for a couple hours to talk about all the issues. But we have to, as a society, to think about the inflow of homelessness. And as people become immediately homeless, 76% of people in our community were homeless this year were homeless for the very first time. And so we need to divert them from their situation very quickly. Maybe that's into a shelter, maybe that's back into a rental unit, maybe some way to do that, right? Not everyone is able to do that. The folks that we see often, many of the folks that are visibly homeless in our community in SoDo have been homeless for a very long time. Many of them have complex mental health and physical disabilities. Over the last 8 years, our community has chosen to really try to address that issue. And we have successfully housed about 1,500 people in our community who have complex disabilities, mental illness, physical disabilities, and we successfully house them. About 95+% of them stay housed. The fact is, though, is we just don't have enough resources. We don't have enough shelter beds. And like Eric said, shelter beds is just a temporary solution, and we need permanent solutions. And so we need investments in affordable housing, and for a certain set of people, for about maybe 10 to 15% of the people, we're going to need long-term rental assistance with supportive wraparound case management services, because we don't want to put those people in an institution, right? Like we tried that, that wasn't very successful as a society. but we can successfully give them dignity and also keep them off our streets and out of the trash with the cup getting a drink because they have a place to be. And I think that ought to be our goal. Like as you said, as taxpayers, that's going to require a lot more resources.
Before we move on, is it okay if I can have Andy give a quick statement? I know he has to leave before too long.
The residents for coming down here. I know there's some elected officials, especially I know Scott was recognized, Scott was very helpful in doing some research on the neighborhood improvement district and different things like that. So thank you. Commissioner Ortiz, thank you for your continued support of the community. But I also want to especially thank Commissioner Uribe. While I work at the land and health, everybody's doing, I'm born and raised here, went to Blankner, Howard, Boone, went to Blankner, when it was Blankner Beavers in the old school. So this was my community too, but if that agreement had not said community consensus, which the commissioner required, this would be very different. And I'll say this to those that were in support of it. This has been a very emotional issue for everybody. And I get it. And I know there's been a lot of things thrown around and a lot of finger pointing, but let's not lose sight of the opportunity we have. And thank you, Dr. Dagan, for bringing everybody together because there does come a point where we have to look at that idea and say, now it's time to turn the page. And one thing that Mayor Dyer said that I think we all agree, Orlando has done this job. Orlando has been the place for the vets. And I'm excited about working with the commissioner with the idea of, okay, Orange County, where are the potential options? There is not one thing that is going to be perfect. There never will be. But to have more options is the absolute goal throughout the county, and not just Orange County, to be quite honest. Seminole County has less beds that they have available than Orange County. Because Seminole County just brings them to Orange County, to downtown, right? And so,
What?
Seminole County
Does what?
brings them into Orange County.
They've all done that.
Right. And so, I would encourage everybody to think big. You know, we need more shelter beds in corporate Orange County, but we gotta think even bigger than that. And I've mentioned this at various times, when you look at successful locations, there should be a moratorium on shelter beds and services in Orlando. And we should start thinking about where the 40 or 50 acres could potentially be to where everything is potentially located. And if you're going to, this is a great start. And it's time for us to start thinking, okay, it's time to turn the page. And I hope these are ongoing meetings. I hope these are ongoing discussions. I hope we're able to support Commissioner Rubin when she's talking to the other county commissioners about options. And so we're ready to be a part of the solution and a part of what can come forward to this group. Take advantage of what we have had the opportunity to come together. So thank you.
Scott?
Can I just respond really quickly? I think, one of the challenges is we don't have any more shelter beds. We know that unsheltered homelessness in our community is doubled. But it's not like everybody's coming downtown. If you look at homelessness, unsheltered homelessness, it stretches from Fifth Road to Wind Garden along 50. It stretches from Sanford all the way down to South Orange County through 1792. It's more prevalent and popular than it's ever been. It's more prevalent in Fifth Road than it's ever been. And so, while I do agree that we need more than just shelters, we need investment in permanent solutions. But this is an issue. Folks aren't coming downtown from out East Bourbon County. They don't want to come downtown. But to your point about the shelter is full. But even if it was empty, right? There are people have possessions. If somebody is with their partner, they can't get into a shelter because they have a partner. If somebody has a pet, they can't get into a shelter because they have a pet. And so those temporary emergency room type solutions aren't available to everyone. They're making a choice, right? About their own safety, about their own personhood, right? And so, but as a community, I hope that as a neighbor, as your neighbor, and as I understand the emotions around this, that we can truly, as Andy said, turn passion into something where we call as for a community for an action solution.
Real quick, I'll just say this, first of all, thank you for all the leaders anyway. I want to say thank you to Octavian, Randy Ross, Doug, and a few other people that really move this thing to tomorrow, next week. I define one thing, a leader is defined by their actions and how they define tomorrow, next week, next month, right? We have some leaders that go above and beyond because they were elected to be our voice. We have others who want to make themselves to be a victim of what we want to voice our opinions on and what's not going to bring in our neighborhood. I just want to say, I've been in Lee for a long time. I know people have been here for 40, 50 years. We just want a better solution. We just want to have a voice. We want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And we're not a voice to say we don't want that. Look, this is a big win for us, but it's also a lot for the homeless people. We want to make sure that we get the right help to the right people. But when you have low beer and no contingency plan for what we're going to do tomorrow, next week, next month, that's a problem. And that leaves a lot of us to think, well, why are we involved? Why was this route through our money and whatnot? We just want the best for all of us because you know what? We're all human and we want the best for all of us. So thank you for everybody who's made this a priority to make this happen. Yes, Mr. Ross. Go ahead.
First of all, Fabian, thank you so much for your leadership. I think it's important that you read the response that Commissioner Sheehan sent you today regarding her invitation to this meeting. It's on record. Well, I have it here.
I'm reading it. I'm sorry. I'm really bad.
I'd rather read it.
It's not very worse.
It is productive because it responds to the point that she's not wanting to be here tonight. I have received your request for additional meetings regarding the SoDo shelter. The proposal was presented by Orlando officials as well as experts in the field of homelessness. I supported this proposal because I feel compassion for those who are homeless. I want to see clear. I want to make clear. The issue has been personally and professionally very difficult for me. You see, I was homeless as a teenager. Every mean thing that had been said about homeless people feels like a direct attack on people just like me. I was lucky. A friend's family took me in, and I was 18, and I could sign my own lease at the time. Many times, people will insist that I must represent their point of view. I cannot represent points of view I disagree with, regardless whether they are held by my constituents. I have been followed and attacked at meetings and social events, and my open email has been jammed with those opinions for months. I need to return to my work and not be inundated with truly any of this any longer. I suggest your group do some research on your own and educate yourselves on the plight of the homeless. Come up with suggestions the Orlando City Council can consider. It is not my responsibility to continue this discourse. You got what you wanted. Kindly remove me from your future emails. I'd like to introduce Austin. He's been a big, he's from Paramore. Same with Luana. They've been great partners for us. The presentation strictly on solutions. 5 minutes. Let's pay attention, please.
Yeah, we'll try.
Yeah, presentation of solutions that they'd like to get. We can dim the lights down here, like real lights.
I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity. This is solutions. This is not trying to, thank you, Randy, for reading that. Um, I'm just grateful that we have a partnership and we can communicate with each other. But I just want you guys to hear what we've suggested in the past, and hopefully we can move forward. That all communities in the city of Orlando is protected and not just one. And I'm so sorry, but my family moved to Paramore in 1971. We've been there since 1948. Paramore is really getting run. We fought for against 350 more beds to be placed in Paramore, and we lost. So now we have all the beds except for maybe 50 that are in Paramore, which is only a 1.4 square mile community.
So to me, Paramore is downtown. Downtown is Paramore. There's no division really.
Right. All right, I've got a little presentation because I actually want to talk about, we want to talk about solutions. Because what if I told you we could solve this? What if I told you that there is a solution that we can research? And I actually know that a lot of these people up on this panel are going to agree with what I say. What I think is unfortunate is that I brought this information several times before the city. Now, let's talk about housing first. What is housing first? And I know a lot of people think this is a pie in the sky solution, but let's talk about the reality because it's been working not only around the world, but in this country. Housing first is a strategy that instead of creating all of these barriers to housing, but simply taking local partnerships with local businesses and local municipalities and creating housing with no barrier to entry, allowing the unhoused to simply have access to housing. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're like, that's going to cost so much money. But actually, it works out to be so much cheaper than what we actually do now. So when we talk about this is when I want to talk about like why housing first. Well, if you look, this is a graph of Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee has dropped 90% of their homelessness using this product. They have the amount of burden on emergency shelters has dropped. The amount of burden on the emergency centers has dropped. The amount of burden on the police have dropped. And you're going, well, Milwaukee's not here. It surely can't work everywhere, except it's worked in Boston. It's actually worked in San Francisco. It's worked in Houston. It's worked in Utah. These are places that aren't just conservative, aren't just liberal. These are different places with different types of people all across the country using one single solution, and it's worked every single time. Now, I know that this presentation is a little fuzzy, so I'm not going to bore you with all of the numbers, but trust me, the numbers are here. When we talk about why shelters fall short, I think you guys all know that because that's why you're here today, right? Because we know that if we put a shelter here, that it will cause a ton of issues. Some of the issues that are immediately caused by things like that the number one driver of crime is inequality. Not anything else, it's actually inequality, both in its magnitude and its distance. What that means is the difference in prosperity between one person and the next person, how big that difference is, and how close they exist together. How far apart are these neighborhoods? So what do you think happens when you concentrate the unhoused in a place full of prosperity? It creates those unnecessary crimes of desperation. So how can we fix this? Because also, by the way, this tracks with when we center shelters and overburden certain areas with shelters. And that is what Luana Gelzer was talking about with Paramore. And that is why Paramore has a higher rate of crime than the rest of Orlando, Florida. And the downtown area of Orlando actually has the highest rate of crime in the city because of the distance of that inequality. Now, what Housing First does, and again, hard to show you here, but it has a 40% reduction in police, in Denver alone, they had a 40% reduction in police contacts, 40% reduction in incarceration, and a 45% reduction in property crime. Just by using this model of housing first. Now, Orlando's been in a housing crisis for a long time. I know a lot of people want to say it's a lot of different things going on. They want to say it's because we're taking burden, we're doing other things. The reality is, we've been in a housing crisis for a while. I know that in 2020, when I brought it to the commissioners, right, if you made the area median income, that means there's an average income for an area. If you made only 30% of that, only 33 out of 100 families had access to housing. In 2025, it's now 23. That's how little affordable housing there is around here. So of course, there's going to be an increased unhoused problem. Of course, these people are seeking desperation. They were sitting just up here trying to tell you, it is not a crisis of mental illness. It's not a crisis of substance abuse. It's a crisis of housing, a crisis that we've known for a very long time, and we've put no solutions forward. This is a solution. Now, we can talk about the economic benefits, the fact that, again, we have decreased burden across the board for all of our services. So that means that as taxpayers, we are no longer paying, on average, by the way, it's around $50,000 that we spend on per person on services for the unhoused as they seek shelter, as they seek emergency services, as they seek all the services that we pay for. But also we see an increase in GDP in an area. Why is there increase in GDP? Because people that have houses want to work. They are not freeloaders. Matter of fact, most of them, the unhoused, have jobs as it is. So if you give them a chance to work, you're giving them a chance to participate in our community. Sure, we may have some influx of homelessness coming in from other places. So why not put them to work? And that actually holds true for businesses as well. Right? Because, and again, I apologize for the fuzziness here, but the fact of the matter is as small businesses, you should really love this. Why? Because in the state of Florida, there's actually a program, you actually get tax cuts if you employ people that are in job programs. So why not start job programs here? Employ some of the unhoused, house them. And not only are you getting a benefit of tax break for your employees, but then on top of that, where do you think that person's going to spend money? Any guesses?
In their community.
Right where they live and right where they participate. What is all of this unhoused? It's cheap labor and it's easy commodity sales. So if you've got a business, you're going to love this idea, right? And there are very straightforward steps that implement this. This is actually, I believe this is the National Institute of Homelessness that I got grabbed this from. And it's just about identifying partners. How many people here have access to real estate, access to housing that they would love to partner with to start a program with us? How many people are looking for employees in the area that they can participate with us? It's about building partnerships and maybe not always relying on the city to solve our problems. Because unfortunately, I think, and I don't know if you guys believe this, but I think that we can't always look to, and listen, Commissioner Ortiz and the commissioners do great jobs in the city. They all work hard, but I think that sometimes we overburden them by always looking to them to solve our problems. It might actually take something that we all look together and solve ourselves, because it's not getting done. I think every single person can look out of the window and see the increasing amount of traffic under the I-4 interface, right? Or what about right there on Washington Street, yeah? Terry Street, you guys have seen that? What about the fact that I've started to see it come over here on Division Street down by Cayley as well? This isn't a problem that I think that the city's gonna be able to solve itself. I think we're all gonna have to work together to try to solve it. So, again, just trying to get its major points. Housing first reduces homelessness by rates for up to 91%. You could save cities thousands of dollars per person and reduce emergency hospital and law enforcement services. It empowers individuals to pull themselves up from the bootstraps and actually participate in their own rebirth and building up their participation in society. And it also creates change without creating strain and the negative externalities that we see in things like shelters. We need to stop building shelters because all that does is concentrate homelessness in an area. And with Housing First, this allows us to not only do things like fix the problem, but it also gives us control over where we can put these unhoused. There are neighborhoods all over the city that with businesses that need patrons. So why don't we put some houses over there? Why don't we put some houses in areas where we have greater access to transportation so that they can get around? Why don't we do things that instead of kicking them out every day at 7 a.m. in the morning and waiting for 6 p.m. So between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. they're wandering the streets in our neighborhoods. Why don't we help them have a roof over their head and also give them some dignity? Because at the end of the day, these people are human, right? We all agree, like these people are human, and like they were saying before, a lot of these people are simply the victims of the fact that they don't have someone to call. And how many of us, I mean, it could be you next week. You know how many times I'm out there, and yes, I do participate, I do feed the unhoused. How many times I'm out there and I see people in nice clothes that clearly have been there, that this is the first time they've been, they were working last week, and now this week they might have, like, you know, they're out there in suits and button-ups, sitting here looking for food. And I think that's really sad. And I think that we're a better city than that. And I think that we mean no harm when we say we don't want to shelter in this area, because we don't want a shelter, we want a solution. And I think that's. Now, the whole point here was again to give you something to say to your elected officials, say to everyone, you want to call Tallahassee, feel free to call Tallahassee, but also call Commissioner Ortiz and say housing first. This is a solution you can put in your mouth. The research is done, it is worked out for you. Housing first. Say it with me, housing first. Because that's the solution. Did you have a question?
Could you introduce yourself out of the button first?
My name's Aston. I'm just a guy. I do a lot of work with nonprofits in the area. I work with the Coalition of 100 Black Women Community Equity Project, OCA, one of the they help special needs children, people that don't have access to special needs. So I do a lot of work and I do a lot of research. If you want solutions, come to me.
Yes, Central Florida. Does Central Florida have a housing first program, sir?
Yes.
Does Central Florida have a housing first program?
She's right here.
I understand. I would like you to answer that. Does Central Florida have a housing first program? Why would he, sir, ma'am, please
I'll
let the
answer.
gentleman
Yes.
answer my question. Does Central Florida have a housing first program? Do we do this?
There are programs in Central Florida that do participate in housing.
1,600 people live in permanent supportive housing. We operate as a housing first program. We
Right.
don't have enough resources. I love your presentation. This is what we do. This is what we do. Great job. And I just want you to know, this is what we do.
But this is exactly my point, right? Because you don't have resources, because people in this audience don't know what the solution is.
Right.
So they need to know what the solution is so that they can talk to their elected officials so that people like you can have the resources to house the people across the city.
And just to stop saying, just stop putting so many shelters in one community. And none of us is to sit on your boards that make the decision. We look at the room, and the people who are mostly affected, the ones with less voice, don't have a voice, are the ones that you prey on. And you say you mean to me,
You
but we're not.
I love you, but I need you to follow the rules as well.
So when I think about one of the real challenges right now is that, yes, we probably need $30 million a year. We probably need $30 million a year to house all 719 chronically homeless people that we counted in the picture last year.
Are you talking about housing or shelter?
And provide services, and we need 719 people that we counted last year in the one-time count were chronically homeless. We probably need $30 million a year in order to house all of those folks and provide services in order for them to be off our streets. That'd be a great vision. It's a lot of resources. That'd be fantastic for the citizens of this community asked for. I'm not sure where we get those funds, but that's what the solution is, right? But the challenge right now in our state is that the legislature has passed a law that says that if you cannot sleep or camp on public property, otherwise the citizens of the community can sue the cities and the counties for not solving that problem. And so one of the things the city, I think the city and the county are trying to do is like try to get people inside, right? And so they're looking for a variety of, they're turning every rock upside down trying to make that happen. Now that we know that this isn't going to happen over here, right? How do we turn our attention to another solution?
So I'm sorry, but let me, to follow up with what you just said, may I call it Peter Fox? You have something to follow up on that?
Good evening. My name is Peter Fox. I attended the last meeting. First of all, I want to thank Octavio and his wife Chelsea and all the people that helped them. Because had they not done what they did, notwithstanding the good commissioner's language for the lease, we wouldn't have solved this program and this problem in the short term. So I want to thank you. I also want to apologize for my demeanor at the last meeting. I was a little abrupt, but to be candid, the reason I did that is because I wanted the city to know that we were prepared to litigate. And I wanted to make that statement in the strongest way I could. So I apologize for that demeanor. It seems to me that homelessness has become a political issue. So large of a political issue that it's become a business. And it's become a business to raise billions and billions of dollars. I'm not here to make a political statement. What I'm here to do, pardon?
No, he doesn't prove his point. He doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove his point. It proves that he's saying something that doesn't have anything with his word. You're just saying things. Well, the problem is.
Whoa.
I can speak. What's going on? Ortiz came up here and said, just after we know that 90% of the people who are unhoused in this community live in this community.
They don't.
So Dr. Kuchel, the large thousands and thousands of studies that I helped with, they give you more unhoused than anybody. And in that study, they found that 80 to 90% of the people who are unhoused live in a community that they are currently unhoused in. So my question that I never got to ask, in the face of that, so first we got what teams up here saying that the other counties are staying in here without any context. We have Angie from Orlando Health Office also parroting the same thing. So I would like you to provide context as to how these unhoused are being shipped in here. Is it collaboration between the city and Seminole County? Is Seminole County doing the buses and shipping them here and dropping them off? I'm curious. I'm curious about the concept. And where's the evidence to support that? Because I don't think we have it. I've looked at your stock photos. I've read it.
We keep this towards solutions. Okay, can I say something, please? Here's something that I have to say. When you're a nonprofit leader, like the three of us that are sitting here, and when somebody comes to your doors, and it's a mom, and it's her 4 kids, and they're standing right in front of us, and they're asking us for help, that could be your daughter, that could be your family member, and it could be anyone This is not a healthy conversation. And I'm just going to say that because when we're working with over 650 individuals a day, we're not thinking about which company or which organization is making billions of dollars. And I'm just going to say that because this is a very emotional job that the three of us do on a daily basis within just my facility here. Over 650 individuals are seeking help. These are low-income families. These are not individuals trying to make something out of the system. These are not businesses, the partners that we partner with. They are not partners that are making money out of the system. So I want to make this very clear that this is a real problem. This is a community problem. And while this conversation has not gone in the direction of a shelter, which is a great conversation for this community to be had while we sit here, right here in SoDo, United Against Poverty. Come through those doors. I ask you to volunteer. There is no one solution that Eric or my partners from HSN or that I can give you today to say. I say it all the time. If I had a magic wand, I would make that magic wand happen every day. This is a real problem, and it's not a problem that we can look away from. So I would ask humbly, as the three of us sit here, that we come up with, and it could be multiple solutions, it could be multiple. You can see Lisa here. We work with Lisa. I work with both these commissioners as well as all of the government to create solutions, whether that's wrap up.
I'm sorry.
I would, first of all, let me personally say this. I, for one, appreciate you and what you do and what your organizations do. Number two, I have never heard anybody ever say anything different. No. No, I did not. I would suggest that, Eric, I would suggest that you listen to me. Let me finish.
It's a billions and billions of dollar industry.
It is. It is. Just wait a second. You're taking it out of context. Really? Okay. I mean, I find you very, and I don't understand why. First of all, I want to clear up the public camping law in the state of Florida. The public camping law, 1365, almost the same as the City of Orlando law, 4352. Almost verbatim. So I'm not sure why the state gets a bad rap when we have almost the same law verbatim. Second of all, last week we heard that the city was either involved in millions of dollars of lawsuits or going to be involved in millions of dollars of lawsuits to try and do what? Keep the laws they already have in their books? I didn't say that. The commissioner said that. The truth is, I looked and looked and looked, and I can't find any current litigation against the city of Orlando that has to do with the state law. Zero. Let me give you statistics, and I'm really grateful that you're here because these statistics I got from the homeless of Central Florida. And I want you to listen carefully because I think it frames the fact that there is a problem, but we have to get to the magnitude of the problem, and we have to get to the location of the problem. And when we talk about finances, the county this year has allocated 56 million to homelessness. The city of Orlando has pledged to use $58 million of federal funds that we got from the American Rescue Plan. $58 million they're going to leverage towards the homeless, quote unquote, from Mayor Dyer.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
The city also has allocated another 9.5 million this year to the homeless. I'm reading this from your budget.
It's 4.5.
In one line item. We need to know where the money goes. Let me give you some statistics, and it's not to say that we don't have a homeless problem and that you all aren't doing a great job. That's not it. I'm not here to be political. I'm here to talk facts and common sense. There are 296, the unsheltered, not the sheltered. These are your statistics. 2024. Is this working?
Yes.
1,094 in 3 counties. 739 or 59 in Orange, 420 in Seminole, and 343 in Osceola. 3 counties. 900 or 792, or excuse me, 296 in all 3 counties are female. 10.86% have children, or if you take just the females, that's only 55. These are their numbers. Okay. The unsheltered are people with mental illnesses, substance disorders, of domestic violence, and that's a very sad thing. And I agree, and I know you all deal with this. But this is in all 3 counties. I would like to know, because we're residents of the city of Orlando, I don't want to hear Orange County statistics. I don't want to hear 3 county statistics. I want to hear what Orlando city statistics are, because that's where we're getting ready to spend up to $52 million or leverage it, plus what we spend every year with the good work, and I'm not saying it's not well placed, with a lot of agents. Things to consider that I'd like you to pay attention to. There's a warehouse on Cayley that's for sale by the county. We certainly don't want the city of Orlando to pick that as their next location. The busing. The city is getting ready to, and I don't know whether I'm for it or against it, but the city is getting ready to buy 2 or 3 buses at $120,000 apiece that are gonna sleep up to 40 people at the cost of $1 million a year. 2 buses. We need to stay engaged and we need to stay involved. Okay, our involvement and our opinions need to be heard, and they need to be heard ongoing. And the city of Orlando needs to be more transparent with how they spend their money. If you go and look at their budgets, you couldn't really figure out what they're spending. You'd have to look at the detail, the real detail, which they don't show. I thank you for your time. God bless you. I thank you for your involvement.
Sorry. Thank you so much for all being here. I want to use this opportunity to hear from you guys. I mean, you're here. It's an opportunity for us to learn about what the city and the county are currently doing and opportunities to improve. I appreciate all the work that you guys do day in and day out. You're in the trenches. You see it. You feel it. I appreciate what you do. I'm curious. I think some of the most challenging population that we see is those who are chronically struggling, chronic homelessness. I know that it is a smaller percentage, and I think the city and the county and the agencies have done a really great job. It looks like establishing a pathway for those who have fallen down on hard times. Obviously, can use more funding, can use more resources, but it looks like there's a path there. What is the current path for those who struggle with chronic homelessness, who don't want to seek shelter, who don't care to work on their addiction? Where do those individuals fall in this larger picture?
I mean, it's really unfortunate. I mean, we have a certain number of dollars for people who are chronically homeless to house them. We don't up against being fully subscribed for all those dollars all the time. We have a certain number of case managers, a certain amount of money for rental assistance. And so how do you serve people who have multiple disabilities? And without a lot of help, we're not going to get off the street. Unfortunately, right now, we're putting them in our jails, right? And so I think it's only as a society, and this is more than just, I think that we can have a strategy as a community that's multi-county. And the point taken, like, I think everybody here, we're just talking about, I just live in this neighborhood, right? So all of us, the whole community, the whole region needs to have a strategy. But it is about our whole country and how we prioritize housing as an important part of what it means to live and what it means to be safe. So unfortunately, I don't have much of an answer to your question. In the meantime, people can go to day centers. They can receive their basic needs. They can get case management. Sometimes what we do is we relocate them closer to family. If we find out that they have a sister or a brother somewhere or a mom somewhere, we put them on a bus. We call beforehand and we make sure that they're going to go to a place that's caring. And we put them on a bus to get them there. We work hard when we do have resources to find landlords that will work with us, even with very challenging people. Case managers work very hard to keep people in housing and keep their tenancy, and we continue to do that. We have a system that works. It's just right now, with our housing crisis, we have more people coming into homelessness than we do in the homelessness. This last year alone, we housed 4,000 people in our community. You have a group of nonprofits working together, sharing data, going to training on best practices, getting support from all the cities and counties, housed 4,000 people. But this last year, we had 6,500 people come into homelessness. And so you do the math, right? Like, really, really challenging. I mean, I think, and I'm sorry, and I thought that really this was about hearing from experts today.
You might ask
There
him.
were a lot of statements, but like, we're in a real challenge as a community. We are a new community. We're not an old community. We're not like New York City that has 25% of their housing stock is HUD supported, is subsidized. Only 40% in Central Florida is HUD subsidized. So we're at a huge disadvantage as a community when we come into situations where there's, economies go up and down, right? And we're in a down in terms of the housing crisis right now. And so we need to advocate. We need your voices advocating to the federal government so that we get more supportive housing, more subsidized housing in our communities, so that we can have some elasticity.
So to follow up on that, Elizabeth, can you please introduce Christina Cordon? She's a perfect follow-up with what we're just talking about.
Mic is working, but I'm not loud. I do want to brand. Hello. Is it working? Oh. So before I introduce her, I just want to say we do not have too much money. I know the numbers on paper might look. Thank you. The number on paper might look really big, but we're spending every year about $37,000 on each homeless person. So you need to sit down with a calculator and figure out, it's a cost benefit analysis. We do not have enough money. In a lot of those cities, you put up have state taxes. People are doing 1 cent tax. There's all sorts of other ways to make money, but I want to nip that in the bud real quick. I don't think a massive mega shelter of 300 people would be the solution, but absolutely we do not have enough money. So I do want to offer, there's multiple solutions, there's a lot of different problems, there's a lot of different prongs to it. For example, a Baker Act, I don't know if you guys are familiar, it's a 72-hour hold, it can also lead to civil commitment. We should be doing that. If you ask a cop, why would you Baker Act me as a cop? Because you want to hurt yourself or somebody else, you want to kill yourself. No, there's a third piece to it, self-neglect, self-harm. There's severely schizophrenic out there, people out there who should be on a civil commitment and are not. Why are they not? Because DCF isn't funded enough. So they want to give the money to little kids, right? And so, right? So there's finite funding and a lot of different people who want to spend it. So, and that's a difficult piece to comprehend if you haven't been in the field, but I promise you the problem is not too much money. So I want to introduce you to Christina. Christina is somebody I worked with. And again, like I said, I worked in the jails. Like the guy said, there's nothing that changed for the homeless people. It's been homeless, being homeless has been a crime in Orlando since the 80s. Okay, it hasn't changed. I personally sat in the jail for 17 and a half years and was working with loitering, panhandling, soliciting, camping, urinating, everything you can do in your own house, but you can't do because you don't have a house. It's called the homeless ordinance. That's always been there. We've always handed in the resources. They've always been arrested over and over and over and over again. And I thought this meeting was more about solutions, so that's why I thought we were coming here to talk about. But I do want to introduce my friend Christina because she's had like 17 different houses in 6 different counties, and I want her to talk about what it's like to have smaller houses in communities at more manageable sizes and the services that she offers. And by the way, these people are making, for years and years and years, they made $750 a month. Any of you able to pay your bills for $750 a month? That's a Social Security check. No. And that's just the people that get a check. Not all of these people get a check, right? So you can't, it's completely unfeasible unless you're in a group environment. But there's there's mental health, there's substance abuse, there's the regular folks, there's a whole lot to this that can't be solved in this meeting. But I wanted to introduce you to somebody who might be able to talk to you more about one solution, one problem of the solution.
Hi, my name is Christina Corden. I tend to get a little bit emotional on this topic because, for one, I've been doing this for 17 years, and I've been doing it. I think we've had over 2,200 clients we've taken care of homeless, Osceola, Polk, Orange, all the way from here to Lakeland, and we've never gotten a dime of government money. So I don't know what it's like to get Medicaid money, grants, anything. We've done this as a family for over 17 years. There is a solution though. We've been doing it under the radar for 17 years.
okay? That means that we didn't take pictures every time we gave a homeless person $1. We didn't post it on social media. We didn't run to the news and say, hey, we fed him. That's because we did everything faithfully from the heart, okay? So if I get emotional because I see people get billions of dollars for stuff that we've been doing. I've never been a millionaire, okay? I've literally housed and fed 2,200 people in 17 years. That means that sometimes I neglected my own household, okay? But just so you know, what we do is we literally travel the streets, okay? And we clean up a lot of Orange County, okay? And we actually place them in different counties because we have to give homeless people different views of life, okay? You can't keep them in the same area because between crime, disease control, it's nothing but a big infestation, okay? If you keep it in one area, okay? You have to separate these people and treat them and categorize them for who they are and what they are. You cannot put them all together and say they're homeless. You know why? Because the majority of my people and my women have been human trafficked. They're homeless because they were raped. They're homeless because their husband left them stranded and not because they're just considerably alone, okay? These people have stories, and if you sit down with some of them, you listen to them, you can actually single them out and put them where they belong, okay? Some of the people that were here on Paramore that they put here, they're in Lakeland now. And you know what happened? They got a job. You know why? Because I put them to work. You know what they did with their Social Security check? They paid their rent, okay? So we didn't need millions of dollars from the community to keep going, okay? So these people actually became productive people, but you have to put them in enough space and enough living area and show them care so they can do these things, okay? You just can't say, let's throw these people in a building. Can you imagine? Sex offenders with human trafficked people, with a person who's mentally the age of 7 but looks 37, okay? So this is the type of stuff that I deal with every day, okay? I literally have cleaned up a majority of the sex offenders in 3 counties and nobody knows it, okay? You know why? Because I own supervised housing, okay? That's where we take the sex offender that you guys see on the news and we put them in the house with monitors and people watching them 24/7. And we open the doors to the sheriff's department to walk in at any time, okay? Half these people were homeless. They lived in tents. Okay, so this is how you clean up the streets. You have to put them where they are suitable, where they belong. Not every homeless person belongs on Paramore. They don't. Okay. I have homeless people in Legacy Park, in Davenport. You know why? Because they're not homeless anymore. They're in a house with a pool and a nice bathtub and a clean kitchen because we have staff. And you know where we get our staff from? People who have to do volunteer work. People who have crimes and they're on probation and they need to help. Okay? So we are putting people back into the system to do the right thing. But nobody know that. You know why? Because I don't go in front of West News and say, look what I did. Okay? I've been under the radar for 17 years, getting people to do the right thing. So realistically, we do have a solution. I've been the solution for 17 years, working with the public defender's office, contracted to Advent Health. They all keep us under the radar, okay? But we've never really spoke up, okay? It's a lot of the big people who do get paid, but it's the little people who do all the work. And I've been one of the little people for many years. And I don't ask. I've never asked for a grant. I've never even applied for one. You know how many people say, you're naive? No, I'm not dumb. Maybe it's our pride, but can you imagine what millionaires get? And I've never been a millionaire. But if 716 people is the crucial amount of homeless people that we're worried about, I've done 2,200 and I've never been given $10,000, okay? And we made it work. So we also have graduating programs for the homeless people. So once you get into our program, okay, you can graduate, elevate yourself. Okay. And I can show you guys pictures. We've been doing it for 17 years under the radar. At-risk housing of Central Florida. Yeah, we work with all the major hospitals, strictly case management, Central Florida Behavioral, Aspire, Advent Health, Heart of Florida, Park Place, they're not Vine Hospital, way in Ocala, send us people, okay? We clean up the streets of Ocala, all the way in Kissimmee, Florida, Davenport, Lakeland, I mean, in each town that we have our houses. Okay, so what I think we need to do, and maybe it's just me, but I see that my clients have still been with me. I have a client that's been with me since the doors opened 17 years later. For 17 years, he's been here. I've had some here for 15 years, 14 years, 9 years, okay? But you know what they did? We put them in the lineup to do better. Okay, we organized a game plan because we treated them like individuals rather than a cluster of people. Okay, so what we did was we said, okay, we need to find out everybody who's hiring in this town where we just set this property at. Okay, I got in contact with them. I made sure that these people's records weren't so severe that they couldn't get jobs. Okay. And if it was, I had to find something else for them to do, whether it's mow lawns or do something. We're gonna find something for you to do. Okay, because it's not impossible. Okay. So now we have working people who were once homeless. Okay. We have sex offenders off the street completely. That guess what? The sheriff's department knows where they're at. You guys may not know, but they're in a house, and I have several of them. Your children don't have to worry. Okay, so there are solutions, but you guys have to reach out to the community to see, because some people do not like to be broadcasted all over the world. Some people don't have, my pride is not, I can't even ask for funding. Okay, I've literally depleted my bank accounts taking care of people my whole life. And not even my whole life, 17 years ago, I'm 43, so you get it. A big portion of my life. So I think that if we was to just think a little bit more and stop, I'm just letting you know now, those millions and millions and millions of dollars, I've never had that. And I've taken care of way more people.
I do want to thank the partners, community seed leaders like yourself, but I also want to take a moment to thank our Commissioner, Myra Uribe, as well as Tony Ortiz, as well as the City Mayor's office with Lisa as well. I do want to make a comment as a nonprofit in SoDo District that we are serving in 2024. We've served over 44,000 adults, 12,000 children. And when you're putting a dollar amount to each person that we're serving, we actually do have accountability that 90 to 92 cents out of the dollar does go right back into the programming. So when these numbers are thrown out, that millions of dollars are given, that is an incorrect statement. We do get audited as nonprofits. In fact, we just got audited by Orange County because we are a CDBG recipient. And if it was not for these great programs, we would not be able to serve the number of individuals that this campus is serving, as well as to the city of Orlando. We do get funding, and a lot of that funding does go, like I said, 90 to 92 cents into a dollar goes straight out into workforce training, emotional training, financial literacy programs, and urgent care on site that's on the campus. Groceries, I just talked about groceries. Look at the cost of goods right now in the grocery store. These programs are very needed, and they're in large scales, and this is the taxpayers' money. So yes, the county and the city does expect us to have that transparency not only when we're applying for the grant, but also on our deliverables. And I want to say the county is extremely efficient on auditing, at least with us. I know we get audited every single year. And that goes the same for the city. If the numbers and the deliverables and the success stories of this individual that goes from homeless, goes into working, gets rental assistance, and then gets housed, if all of those journeys and those deliverables do not get met, I, as the executive director, hold myself responsible at that point, and so does all of my staff, because at the end of the day, that is your money, the taxpayer, and we as nonprofit leaders are held accountable at the end of the day, because that is your money, and this is our community, and this is how we make progress. And it takes numerous, just like one of the leaders said right here, she does them in smaller amounts. The larger organizations have to be accountable to you, the people, to make sure that these are forward solutions, that you are also engaged with us. I know I'm having an affordable housing panel in Winter Park, because when you talk about municipalities, and like Commissioner Ortiz said, these are conversations of education as well, that if each one of these municipalities did have some kind of affordable housing solutions, we all wouldn't end up to where these numbers are today. So I do want to take a moment to thank the city staff, to thank both of the commissioners that are present, and to the officials that continue to support all of these great programs.
And I think that the issue isn't that you guys aren't transparent. I think that the issue is that 92 cents is going to the feeding and not of the housing. And I think that's what a lot of people are pointing out. And that they would like you to do more to support people like her, instead of that would present a long-term solution instead of short-term solutions that end up with people being unhoused again. But I want to let this lady talk because she's been trying to talk for a while. Could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Coco. And I want to know, how many of y'all has been homeless or homeless right now? You. Anybody else? You've been homeless before. Okay. Well, I want to speak on the matter of being homeless, because I was just homeless. Commissioner Ortiz is right there. I spent over a year speaking to City Hall, okay, about homelessness that's happening in the Paramount Avenue community. Right now, there's over 70 evictions in the Paramount Oaks apartment, which is supposed to be for affordable housing. Getting the community block grant, getting the low-income housing tax credits. All this money is passing through while they're making people homeless. I was number 52 of those evictions. I'm a community advocate. I speak up for the people. You see me every month at the City Hall. Isn't that right, Commissioner Ortiz? Speaking before Orange County Mayor Buddy Dyer, Shan Rose, which is the intern commissioner for District 5, which is the Paramount Avenue community, just part of that. I'm homeless. I'm without a place to stay. So you're looking at me saying, I'm coming to your organizations to get help. I haven't gotten any help. When I come, it's putting me through this strenuous process. Eligibility, this and that. You don't have the funding. The funding is not there. I haven't gotten any help. I'm homeless. For over a year, I've been crying to the city of Orlando. He see me every month, speaking about the homeless population in the Paramount Avenue community, speaking about how I'm being evicted out illegally. I did not owe anybody no rent. When I started staying, Paramount Oaks apartment is right on Paramount Avenue. They said they brought those apartments to the community that offer affordable housing. That was a lie. Let me tell you what affordable housing is. It may start off as affordable, and the people think they're getting affordable housing, but they're not getting affordable housing. What they had was affordable when they was paying $700 a month rent based on the income they had. As soon as affordable housing came in, they offered them that low rent, but then went up every month. My rent when I first came in was $875. Then it went up to $975. Then it went up to $1,126. Okay? Paramount Oaks Apartments only been there for 5 years. They get all this grant money, all of this money that they get. feeding the investors, but not the people who they are using their social security numbers to get all this money and profit that's made. But what I'm trying to say here today is, I wasn't homeless until they wanted me out of the community, because I'm speaking about affordable housing. I'm speaking about the corruption of affordable housing. I'm speaking about all this HUD funding that passes through the hands. And I'm sitting here saying it's retaliation, it's discrimination. And my homelessness started when I protested against everybody dying. Talking about affordable housing. And when I spoke up about affordable housing, and I came in there and they cut in the ribbon saying we're bringing more affordable housing, that is a lie. What you're doing is running these senior citizens, people like me of low income, out of the community for gentrification. Paramount Avenue has the largest homeless population in Orlando, Florida. You understand? And that's where all the influx of homeless people are at. I congratulate you. I honor you for what you're doing, because with your services and what you're doing, you may not get the millions of dollars that the other people get, but you're doing a great job. Because if I go to the people that has the millions and has all the grant money, I can't get none of it. If the city of Orlando know about all these resources and I cry every month, why are y'all trying to make me homeless? Why didn't you help? You said you got these resources. None of these resources help me. Stop evicting the people, making them homeless. I became one of them homeless people, but I got a whole story to tell. So it doesn't work. What's happening is $13 an hour is the minimum wage here in Orlando, Florida.
That work.
Okay? Some people may go ahead and pay $15 an hour. So where do you expect these young people who's coming out of high school to live when a one-bedroom costs you $1,500 or more in the community in which we live in? So they can't afford it. That's the problem. The math is not math, and I have said that every month, and Commissioner Ortiz knows me personally, he knows me because we see me go before city council. Every month, speaking on homeless population, speaking on don't make me homeless, number 52 of the evictions, but guess what? I still got put out, and it wasn't because I owe anybody any rent money. It was because of retaliation, discrimination. We want you out because you're speaking up and you're saying too much. Keep your mouth quiet.
Okay, can I just answer? I just want to say, first of all, I sympathize with your story, with your situation. I just want to make it clear that we're not a contractor. I'm not in affordable housing, and I empathize with all the residents of Paramore. They're a very big demographic that we serve right here at United Against Poverty. And again, we do not, I am totally with you on the stories. These stories do come to our doors, and I sincerely want to tell you that it is not what we do over here. I do not have an affordable housing solution, so I don't want this to go out of context of what we're talking about here, because there's some great work being done, and even the lady that spoke with the seed of doing so much for her community without asking for funding, those are your heroes in the community, and I would never take any of that away. So I really want these conversations to be positive, because we would love to help you, and I ask you to please come and see me personally. Eric Gray is right here as well. We are your nonprofits in this territory, and we are here to help you. So I don't want you to feel that I'm saying that the 92 cents or any of this is not to help, because Paramore is to my heart. It is close to where we serve the community on a daily basis, and we hear these exact stories, and these exact stories go right into those narratives as I sit with the commissioners and as any of my partners sit with the commissioners, to say that these are the stories of the people and they are listening, so your voice does come to us as well. So I really did want to make that clear, that I truly sympathize with all the residents in Paramore and all of these challenges.
If you really empathize with us, how come every time we talk about affordable housing, we keep changing the subject? Stay on affordable housing and
Hold on. I had to get your name, sir. I'm not sure you introduced yourself.
I did. My name is Aston.
Aston, I'm very sorry, and I'm feeling a little bit. I was invited by Octavian because I thought that this was a conversation within SoDo about homelessness, and that people wanted to ask questions and have a dialogue about homelessness in SoDo. And I feel like I'm a little bit in a bit of a circular firing squad here about all kinds of issues that I wasn't invited to speak on. And I just want to state that up front. The truth is I am deeply appreciative of what you do. We need you. Yes. It's amazing the work that you do. You're truly doing God's work. And you know what? And I apologize, I forgot your name already. I already forgot your name. What is your name? Chris, I'm so sorry. I'm like my brain. But and you're doing amazing work. There are dozens of people out there doing amazing work like you're doing that don't connect with the system. There are people around this table that do facilitate federal dollars and local and state dollars. They're doing amazing work. And you know what, folks? It's not enough. I have 10 emails a day come into my inbox. Somehow people find my email and email me directly. They don't go through the normal channels. They email me directly and they ask for help. There's not enough resources for us to house everyone, to help everybody as quickly as they need it. And so I hope when you go away from this meeting tonight, that you're asking yourself, what can I do in my community to help drive the effort, whether it's efficiency, whether it's more resources, whatever it is, to educate myself in order to help us solve this problem in this community. And that's what those of us who are up here are trying to do. Thank you.
We let our life speak for 60 seconds. She has to go over here with yeah.
That's all right. I can do that. Thank you very much. I'll make it quick. Hello, SoDo. First of all, I really appreciate the panel. I know that we don't think you don't really meant to, but sometimes, the mob, you guys are in your hot spot and you responded really well. Life is an arena and our emotions are a little bit raw right now because we have had, I've been in this community for going on 10 years, but I know people have been here for 20 and 30 years, and they will tell you that it used to be a very bad neighborhood. There were bars in the windows, and there was high crime, and the residents of SoDo have built this into a very nice neighborhood, and we do not want to turn back the clock. And so emotions are a little bit raw if you have some empathy for us. And on behalf of my neighbors in SoDo, I think that we're a very good community in a lot of ways. We're very compassionate. We have no problem helping our neighbors and working on the crime and working on the this problem for our neighbors. But I really want to promote what Commissioner Ortiz had to say with a short story. My sister's friend was just recently joined me about 2 weeks ago in Mention Park. Very nice neighborhood, nice sidewalks, nice trees, and he was thankful. And he sat down on the bench to rest it. Man was out there for 5 minutes before a police car rolled up and said, "What are you doing here?" And he explained the situation, and the cop said, "All right, we'll sit with you, and I'll wait until you feel well enough to walk on home." And we know exactly what they were doing, right? We know exactly what they were doing. They were doing what all the surrounding municipalities do with their population that they do not provide services for. They put them in the back of a police cruiser and they drive them to downtown Orlando. And so downtown Orlando has high crime. And maybe crime problems. We're happy to take care of our population, of our neighbors. We understand that, but we also, we want to spend our property taxes and our taxes that we collect from the residents on our services, on our schools, on our streets, on our swimming lessons, on our gifted programs, on our infrastructure. And so, again, we call on our neighbors and, we don't have to just call on them. I think that it's time to put up a little bit of resistance. And the police officers from Kissimmee, Maitland, Winter Gardener, Park Lakeland, continue this policy of just driving their population that they do not want to provide social services for
To downtown.
Yeah. You just have to walk with, to sit with them until they can go somewhere, and that's your evidence that police officer, on house, and just dropping them off.
That's not my only evidence. The rest of my evidence is the fact that if you search homelessness services Winter Park, you're gonna be taken to a webpage, and the only services that have beds associated with them are located in downtown Orlando, Paramount.
Okay, yeah, these officers are dropping off the unhoused down.
There's evidence because I feed the unhoused and they tell me to.
Okay, that's different, that's more evidence, but again, like,
It was,
okay, what are we talking
it
about?
was an anecdote,
It's an anecdote.
and the point is that the beds are here.
And it demonizes on
The
how.
police, it's not anyone.
You absolutely have, a regular, listen to you out on November 4th, talking about how you're gonna call the police every day. I've seen, I've read the interviews with you, and you're talking about how.
The
homeless
police,
people
let me
come in
ask you
and
a lot
as they walk.
of
So this is demonizing homeless people, let's not pretend like you care about the situation.
My emotions,
That's not-
my emotions are immaterial. I care about the law.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Chelsea. My name is Betty. I'm also a concerned and compassionate citizen of SoDo. My question is, statistically speaking, how do we know that the people coming through the up and the other areas, how do we know where they were housed and how do you track that? So go ahead.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Good question. Awesome. So there's one of the reasons I really enjoy working in this space is there's a computerized database system that pretty much every homeless service provider in the United States uses. Not all of them, but the majority. And right now in our community, I think it's roughly 50 to 60 agencies all use these programs. So if somebody goes to, say, the Coalition for the Homeless and does intake and spends, their 90 days or whatever it is that they need there, and then they come to, Against Poverty, or they go to my facility, we can look them up in real time and see all of that tracked. So what happens is we're able to complement the work that was already done, and we were able to track the history of that person going back as far as they entered into the system. So what we've get a little bit better at each year is figuring out what the correct questions to ask are. So many years ago, one of the questions you could always ask is, where are you from, right? And now the slight variation on that question is, in what community were you last housed, right? In an apartment or a home. And so we get a little bit better at finding that very specific data that we need, and all that information gets tracked and shared with every other service provider. But the nice thing is, it's not shared with the government in the sense that the city of Orlando or Orange County or OPD or the sheriff's department could just go in and look somebody up because it's private. But at the same time, we do share reports with them and data. It's kind of like a hospital. But in our case, it's actually better than the hospital system because the HIPAA privacy laws that are set up for those really restrict hospitals from sharing information with one another. Electronic medical records are still trying to build up speed here in the United States. But the homeless management information system that we use, HMIS, has actually been one of the better tools that we've used because it's just sharing data back and forth. I'm not sure if I answered your question, so if I didn't, please.
Yes, you did. But, so you cannot share those statistics with Orange and Orange?
Oh, yeah, we can share statistics all day long.
Okay.
What I can't share is like Coco's information.
Right.
Right, because that would be.
I understand that.
Right. But yeah, the data, all the data that Commissioner Ortiz was sharing and that Brian was sharing, that's all coming from the same place. And because
So
we
how many homeless people do we have living in 32806?
Sure.
At any one time of the year?
So Brian has some.
That's correct.
So Brian has some data on that. What I'll ask is I'm going to follow up after you answer your question.
I mean, this has been an eye-opener for me as well. I work in Orlando Health, just down the street. I see, we do intake homeless people in the emergency room constantly, of course, because we have the emergency services. I work in an outpatient cancer center. I've taken care of many, many, many people who are indigent over the years. So
I am aware, and like I said, I live right off of Orange, Michigan, so it does seem to be an area that tends to have a lot of homeless people gathering. And the other point I wanted to bring up is that Orlando has spent a lot of money on the Main Street initiative, and that's another, conundrum. That why are we giving that money to build up our community and seemingly, I could be wrong, but seemingly putting a shelter in the middle of this would be counterintuitive, excuse me.
Right, and the shelter is not happening, right? That's.
Yes, I'm aware of that. That's what they tell us.
Okay,
That's what they tell us.
okay, all right, that's the news that I got. So, okay. So there's kind of two ways that we count people experiencing homelessness. We count every day through the system that Eric was talking about. So we know the total number of people coming in to homelessness every year in our community once they connect with the system. There's folks that never go to the Christian Service Center or the coalition, and we don't know about those folks. People in their cars that are episodically homeless, they may not ask for help. We don't know about them. And then the other way we count is once a year in January on one day, we send enumerators, people out, volunteers into the community. This just happened last month, whatever. And we actually survey people. So we find out a lot about what's going on. Is it a complete count? Probably not. But from year to year to year, we see trends. And before I came tonight, I actually looked at the data in 32806 from last year's point in time count, because I haven't released this year's yet. But at last year's point in time count, in one day in January, recognizing that people come in and out of homelessness, right? And so you'll see more people. On that day last year, we talked to 12 people who were homeless in SoDo. The average age, there were 0 of them were veterans, which is good, The average age of the people were 58. The youngest was 34. The oldest was 76. 83% of them were homeless on the streets. They slept on the street the last night. 8% of them in the woods. 8% of them, which is like one, in a vehicle. 78% were male, 22% female. 89% of them reported that they had a disability. One had experienced domestic violence. 63% of them had some type of mental health or emotional disorder. 50% of them had some sort of physical disability. 13% of them self-identified they had an addiction. 50% said they had 2 or more disabilities. 63% said that they were homeless for the very first time in their life.
What percentage?
63%. 67% said they had been homeless for more than a year.
This is of the 12?
Of the 12,
Of
yep.
the 12 people, okay.
Yeah.
How many were from 32806? The 12.
I don't have that data. I don't have that data, but 100% of the people that were surveyed on that night had last been housed in Orange County. And 89% had I don't know what the last data for this. Never mind. But the interesting thing about so everybody was from Orange County. We know that about 85% of people who are homeless in our system throughout the year are from the Tri-County area. Meaning it's usually between 15 and 18% are coming from outside of our counties. If you go to other counties or places in the country, it's about the same. It's about the same. People like to say that people come to Orlando because it's warm. Maybe. I don't have evidence of that. It looks the same to me. But I do know that it's very hot in the summertime, right? And people are trying to escape from the heat as well. And the one thing is I know this to be true because my own eyes is that in the last year I've seen an increase of people in SoDo. Would you agree that there's been an increase of anecdotally?
Yes.
Yeah. And I really do believe that because of the increase in enforcement downtown that we've seen migration. And I hear it anecdotally. I hear it from law enforcement. I hear it from other people that we're seeing people begin to migrate during the day in order to avoid the consequences, whether actual or perceived, of being arrested for being on public property. And so I think that's just another sense, like, and again, we have homelessness all the way on 50 from east to west, all the way from 17 to 92 from north to south. People are more hidden. People are in the woods, they're going further back because they're fearful, right? And so that's an added complication to our ability to solve and our ability to help people that are in need.
I think that you're going to, you would say that on Terry and on Paramore was in fact moved because of the soccer stadium. They used to be right in front of your center, but a lot of them during the day have moved and migrated out of that area, yeah.
Well, I'm going to answer your question. Let me do, but so 2 years ago, we did a very comprehensive effort in Paramore Heritage area where we went out. It was basically 32 hours of volunteers going out and talking to people. So it's sort of a microcosm of the point in time count, but it was just Paramore. And we counted, it worked out to be about 257 unique people that we talked to over a 30-day period of time. One of the places we talked to people was on Terry Avenue, where there used to be an encampment right across the street from the entrance to the coalition. And the first time we went out, there was roughly 48 people in that area that we spoke to. But then we went back about a week and a half later because there had been an effort to sort of move the folks along, clear the encampment. They were camping illegally on the sidewalk, and that was fine. That's what law enforcement had did their job as best they could, as compassionate as they could, and I don't have any opinion about it. But people were gone for a day or two, and then all of a sudden people were back. So we went back to talk to them again just to see what their experience was. And this time we talked to 44 people. 44 completely unique people from the 48 that we had spoken to just a week and a half before. Then we did it a third time, another week and a half or so later. This time we went back and I believe it was 45 people this time. I don't know why the numbers are all similar. And again, completely unique group of people. And the reason I share that is that the trigonometry of this problem is really hard for people to wrap their minds around. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around. Because we think about the issue being, okay, well, they moved from here to SoDo to there. But what happens is a lot of those people, I don't know if I like this term, but we use the term self-corrected, meaning they figured out a way out of their experience on their own and with no help from anybody. And we're happy and proud of them for being able to do that. Because the population of people experiencing homelessness changes very rapidly. If you don't mind, though, I hope that answered your question, but I'd like to share just one thing, maybe to arm you guys with some fact that you can take and talk to other people about, because we asked about affordable housing. So I'm going to tell you what I teach a class on this, and this is what I try to teach. For Bill Gates, all housing on planet Earth is affordable, meaning he's not going to spend more than a third of his income on the mortgage or buying a house or whatever you would call it, right? If Brian and I lived right next door to each other, and we had the same floor plan, same square footage, right next door to one another, and Brian was spending 29% of his income on his home, but I'm spending, say, 35% of my income, I am in unaffordable housing. He is in affordable housing. So the affordability of housing doesn't have anything to do with the quality or the size of housing. But here's why you should all be interested in this problem, and you should be glad you came tonight, if for no other reason. This is going to get worse, and here's why. And I don't like that it's going to get worse. I think it's terrible, but here's why I think it's going to get worse. In the United States, there are 392 metropolitan statistical areas. The Orlando MSA is 4 counties. We rank 391 in one specific category, and that's the percentage of households in all 4 counties who are spending more than 30% of their income on their rent or mortgage. There's only one community in the United States worse than us, and they're 1 percentage point worse than us, and it's the Miami metro area. So the reason that we should be concerned about this is that the leading indicator for really understanding that the problem of homelessness is going to get worse, although this is an indicator of lots of other problems too, but specifically if you wanted to know how is our homelessness doing, if Commissioner Ortiz or Commissioner Uribe called me and said, how's it going with homelessness? That's the data I would look at, and I would say not so good, because if we don't curb this trend quickly, you're gonna see more people out in the streets or in their cars or in shelters or wherever. So what I would hope you guys would take away from all of this, it's not my opinion, and this is just fact, that our affordable housing inventory is very low. And so we have to find ways to construct more apartments in our community, whether that's City of Orlando, City of Altamont Springs, Kissimmee, doesn't matter. We have to figure out a way to do it. Or people are going to leave, and I'll use OPD as an example. Commissioner Ortiz is a former Orlando Police Department officer, that's why I was thinking about this. According to Chief Smith, 60% of the entire Orlando police force, not just the officers, the staff, everybody, 60% do not live in Orange County. Not just City of Orlando, do not live in Orange County. And the main reason is they can't afford to. Now, there are other reasons, I'm sure, but that's the main reason. So if you don't know anything else, the idea that we do need to pay attention to this for lots of reasons. One of them is because it's likely going to get worse if we don't figure out a way to address the problem in the short run and in the long run. There are solutions for this, but I've talked too long, and I'm hoping that nobody else is going to fall asleep. You're all doing a great job of not falling asleep, and so I'm going to hand it back to
I have a question though.
I guess if we point out that the number is 19,000 homes to lower the rate of housing.
Yes, ma'am.
I was out with my family, we were out somewhere in Winter Garden, we're heading out that way.
It's 8:48, can you sleep till 9? Okay, all right, that's 12
So
minutes.
I see how fast these apartments are going up. I mean, we're going up all over the place out that way. How much money was going to be for the shelter doing all the engineering and all the revamping? Does anybody know what the total was?
Yeah, roughly it was going to, let me think about it for a second, because I wasn't part of the project. Yeah, so they never finished the estimates because they weren't, I think the community thought they were like way far along with this. They weren't actually, it was just, it was estimates. But I will tell you this, it roughly costs in the US, this is very rough, about $100 per bed per night to run an emergency shelter. That's a rough estimate. Some communities it's a little less, some communities it's a little more. So you can kind of calculate that if say it was a 200 bed shelter, you can kind of do the math on that, and I don't know what the cost would be.
What was she comparing to over $3,000 per person?
So that's what she was.
100, 30, 50, practically at a 30, it's the same number.
Yeah, she quoted a really interesting statistic, and I'm glad you brought that up. The data is actually about 10 years old here in Orlando. We need to update it. But we did a study here, and it's been done all over the United States, where we interviewed as many chronically homeless adults as we could over a year's period of time. And we tracked how often they were using 2 things: the emergency rooms at any of the hospitals and the 33rd Street Jail. Between those 2 costs, this is 10 years ago, it was costing those 2 entities, or if you think about it, the community as a whole, roughly $31,000 per year per person on average. And so the theory, it was a theory, was that it would be cheaper for us to put them in a $1,500 a month efficiency than it would be to have them on the streets. Now, every community in the country has to look at this statistic and kind of figure out what's the math here and what makes the most sense. Brian was talking earlier about a program called Permanent Supportive Housing. That program, I don't love the name of it, but it doesn't matter. I don't get to pick the names. But we have money that Brian and his team have been able to quintuple the amount of federal funding coming into the community in the last 10 years. And what they did with that is they grew the permanent supportive housing program by a factor of 8. So we went from about 200 apartments to 1,600 apartments all across 3 counties. And what happens is when they say
Low-cost housing?
it's all apartments, all spread around. It's just normal apartments like you and I would live in. But these are people who are typically much older and typically, actually, they have to have a disability.
1,600?
I'm sorry?
We're going 1,600, you said?
We only have funding for 1,600. The waiting list is over 1,000 long. But the part that makes me sad about this is that we open up beds for people on that waiting list every once in a while, but only usually because someone passed away. And let me finish this one second, I'll let it true. And it's the average length of time that someone is in permanent supportive housing is really not permanent. It's 12 years. Some people less, some people more. And so we're putting the sickest, oldest adults in the community that will never work again. Because this is not, forgive me if any of you have this, I'm not trying to be insulting. This isn't, I have a disability, I need a handicap tag in my car. This is, I have no arms and no legs, right? And so like, there's nothing I can do to work. So we need to help them as opposed to being on the streets. So that's where we talk about millions of dollars. Part of that is keeping 1,600 people in homes. Currently, we're worried because the federal government has threatened to cut that funding significantly. I don't know where we are with the worry about that right now. But if they did, there would be, whatever number they cut, those people would be out on the streets that day because their rent wouldn't be paid. And so that's one of the concerns we have about how the funding works.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely, yes,
And we
absolutely.
need housing that stays at the rent that they're supposed to stay at, instead of evicting people going up and going up. Something has to change there. But the money that we're spending for these temporary shelters for people coming in and out of, I think it needs to go to long-term more housing too, for the long term.
You wouldn't have a hospital without an emergency room, right? You wouldn't have a hospital without an emergency room, right? And so like shelter, and I'm not being oppositional, I promise you, but like a hospital needs an emergency room to triage and then to move somebody into a longer term bed, right? And then you move them on from there. And what costs more than a hospital bed? Emergency room bed, right? And so, and they're always quickly trying to move people from emergency room beds into hospital beds. And then what are they trying to do? Quickly move people where?
Out.
Home. Gotta get them home because it's way cheaper to home health and whatever than keep them in a hospital bed, right? It's the same thing. Honestly, I mean, I think that the city, and this is just my opinion, has been doing an amazing. They're putting $58 million into this problem, right? That's a commitment. It took strategy to make that happen. Those monies have not been fully deployed yet because it takes a long time to build, right? They have worked hard. The county has put another $10 million in. Is it enough money? No, I bet you that both commissioners will tell you that it's not enough money to solve the issue, right? But it costs more to build and to maintain emergency shelters than it does to give permanent housing. But we don't have all that housing yet either. So even if I got $30 million today and I was going to try to house all 719 chronically homeless people out there, then I'm going to compete in the marketplace for the housing that everybody else is competing with. And so that just goes to show kind of the complexity of the rubric, the trigonometry that we're trying to do, and also the need for all of us to be educated and involved in advocating for long-term solutions. Thanks for your question.
But to your point,
if you don't mind.
No, no.
To her point, SoDo is not affordable real estate.
No, yeah, it's not.
It's
Yeah, I know that.
not.
Although I bought my house about 8 years ago, it has gone up in value pretty significantly since I bought it.
Thank you all.
I want to say something. I know we're short of time, but I want to say something because when I made my comments, I gave you my stats earlier. There's a reason why those stats were the way they were, not because the county or any of the counties intended to not to build any of those things. 15 years ago, we didn't have that. 20 years ago, we didn't have this problem. But you all know that different things have been happening around the world, other countries and whatnot, and everybody goes to where things are happening. And we're victims of our own success. We have grown industries, we have done great things in our Central Florida region, the counties, Tri-County area, the municipalities. So with the good comes the bad, you know. And there's issues have you know, another lady going like, oh, what is that about? Well, yeah, it comes, when you get a lot of people going around certain areas because they're being successful, like in the Central Florida region, with all our industries, the technological and everything else is going on around here. People will come up because this is a land of opportunity. So I don't know if you guys, are you guys familiarized with the SoDo Fund? I figured, because I know that a lot of people have. The SoDo Fund was a fund that was created back in 1991.
Sadowski Fund.
Sadowski. Yeah.
Okay, couldn't hear.
Okay, maybe my accent came out.
It's all right.
But it's okay. It's SoDo. But anyhow, 1991 it was created. 20 cents of every dollar out of dog stamps from transactions when you buy or sell a building are supposed to go to the legislature, and those 20 cents or 20% are dedicated to housing. The problem is, although it was created as a law, it was not totally made constitutional. So the legislature, every so often, decide that they want to use those funds for something else. So it's not like we have, I know. It's not like we have a continued stream of people, of money coming to the municipalities or the county to use for housing. So we have to fight. We have to go to Tallahassee. The counties, the municipalities have to go to Tallahassee and ask for the legislators to please continue to let that fund come to the municipalities. For many years, about 3 years ago, they started sending those funds almost full back to the communities, but for many years they did. So we were stealing from Peter to pay Paul, using CDBG monies to create housing. So when all this crisis came about, yes, the city of Orlando, the $58 million that we're giving to the city of Orlando from ARPA money were dedicated to housing for the veterans, for the homeless, for all these different programs to help the community. And yes, you're all right, it's not enough. And this particular project about grabbing that building was part of a deal that was done between the county and the city. And there was no ill intent. There was no ill intent. There was no ill intent, because I know the mayor has a big heart. And although some of us saw some of the things and we voted against it, but there was no ill intent in the sense of utilizing it for this. Now, he made it clear that he would bring it to the community. People were asking, what was this going to be brought up to for the community to decide if it was a good deal or not? Well, it was brought up. Mr. Sheehan, I believe she was in a meeting with you guys or whatnot. And when he saw what happened, he said, okay, this is not going well. The actual transaction had not been started yet. This was starting. I mean, the study had not been done, none of these things. So that's why I said it's so important that the community gets involved in everything we do, because government is about the people, it's not about dictators. So I'm glad that you guys came forward. You came forward and said, well, you said, having said that, I know the city of Orlando is going to continue researching and searching, just like the county's doing too, and other, and even Osceola County, Seminole County, other municipalities will continue looking to see how they can solve this. Now, as I said before, we need to go to the legislature, okay, and tell our legislature that they need to pass a law where they force every municipality in the state to create solutions based on the population they have, because it's not fair for one municipality or one area to take the burden. I don't want to call it burden because it's at the end of the day, it's inhumane. I get it, but let's use a different word. We need to share, we need to share.
Tom. You've been there.
But
We're
I-
living through it.
I understand. We need to share this issue. The 400,
It's pretty easily spread over every city, so that means that there's not as much translate in and out of your time.
say that again.
They say that the homeless population that's coming into the city is about 15%, which is consistent with all of the counties.
No,
Yeah, come on, so-
I think you're saying like, you know, LA is getting 50% of it, and so is San Francisco, so it's roughly all evens out.
Yeah, so that would mean that here it's evening out as well.
Yeah, but if you notice, what other municipality out of the 13 municipalities in Orange County have shelters or have any kind of programs for the homeless?
I mean, I'm just suggesting that maybe if we're not finding the traffic change, that it could maybe overwhelming that as much as like.
I get what you said, but the issue still stands that a lot of, and I know the gentleman over there asked me if there was some evidence. I was a police officer for 14 years. But let me answer that. Let me answer that. I was a police officer for 14 years and I dealt with that person. So yes, there is evidence of that. So my point is, we need to make sure that everybody is involved in this issue. It should not just be for me. And in terms of funding, we also need to be calling Tallahassee to make sure that those legislators continue to allocate those fundings to the communities, because sometimes they're hold back, and we need them. Okay,
And
that's
right
it.
now, the federal government needs to receive it.
Well, the federal government, unfortunately, I think that people are awfully upset at the way that it's, the way that our money is reported in the state, it's spent, it's really not necessarily. It's bad.
We're not getting enough. We're not getting enough money. Let's be very clear about that. We're number 49 out of 50 states in mental health funding, okay? We're number 48 when it comes to substance abuse funding. We're always 48, 49 in homeless, we do not have enough funding. Please stop spreading that craziness. We don't have state tax here. We don't have enough funding. I hear you saying that, but I've worked with this population for 20 years and I respectfully disagree. I think people are working very hard and the funding is not being lavishly thrown in. I mean,
I'm sure you guys last year.
it's not a problem scratch over. We don't have a representative that supported us. I can see why if you live in Winter Park. But that's what it does. That's old news. It's irrelevant. No, it's not. Aren't they trying to do a few blocks away from Haley? They're looking at another location.
So is the problem the location, or is the problem that you just don't want it here? Is that, what's that the issue? Because some of you don't want it here.
I think we have a lot in this.
I think that in SoDo, we don't have any sort of paid shelter for anybody unhoused. I think we get unhoused right here, right now in SoDo. And those people deserve compassion and a place to sleep and are compassion. Because we have means. I know, I've seen the signs at all of your houses, and it's the biggest damn houses in the neighborhood. I've heard the stories, and it's demonizing on housekeeping. That's how we started, and that pisses me off. Makes me ashamed of all of you.
Well, what makes me mad is when
No,
another person
all
comes in,
the others-
my husband's work,
So
and shuts
the
it,
problem
or
is that
wants to
we're not
hit
talking about how we're gonna.
I have a
what we're
problem
gonna
with
do.
that.
Where do you live? We move it out of SoDo. And what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do for the people that are unhoused that are here right now? And that's why I'm here. That's why they're here. And that's what we're not talking about. What we're gonna do. What are we gonna do now? Because we're talking about
3,600 students that live within a mile.
What about
of
the
the
3,600
professional-
students?
There
What
are
about-
3,600 students.
I know that. What
And
about?
they're within walking distance in 10 minutes of that whole area.
So what? He's in jail.
That are blocked out.
All right, let's, I hope this was helpful.
It wasn't.
Thank you.
Marshall.